Hello, and welcome to the Courage, Confidence, and Connections podcast. My guest today is Willie Myers, and he's going to be telling us a lot about his story. And I also believe you're in Georgia. Is that correct?
That is correct, just outside of Atlanta.
Awesome. My stomping grounds in North Carolina. So that's great.
Right up the road, yeah.
Not too far. And so tell me, I'd kind of like the audience to know a little bit about your background because I found it very fascinating. And I like, in your words, tell us as much as you want us to know, and we'll just go back and forth on some conversation here.
All right, well, I appreciate you having me on here. So, yeah, name's Willie Myers, live in Woodstock, Georgia. I'm a father of eight. I have five girls and three boys. Luckily, I don't have much hair left, so, kind of tells you a little bit what's kind of been going on with that. But actually, I'm really blessed. I have five grandkids, four grandsons and a granddaughter. She seems to be the one running the bunch at 4 years old, so it kind of tells you where that's coming from. Um, Yeah, I'm a father of a minister. My father was a pastor in Texas, so I kind of grew up a preacher's kid in that. Played sports, um, graduated from George Washington University in Washington D.C. Was a paramedic for the fire department there. Actually, I was a paramedic for about 39 years.
Wow.
Mostly out of really have a public safety background. Completely loved it. Completely enjoyed what I did. Um, and just like anything else, like 9/11 affected, the good majority of the country. Lost a friend there, and that kind of transitioned me to being recruited by the State Department. Unknowingly, I did special operations here as a paramedic. So we were the tactical medics that responded to SWAT calls and things of that sort. And in 2004, we had what was called the G8 Summit here in Atlanta, or just outside of Atlanta, and I got selected to work that detail. And in doing so, ended up being recruited by the State Department. And so when you look at um, diplomatic security in that aspect, if you think about what the Secret Service does for the president, well, the State Department has what's called diplomatic security service. We provide protection for U.S. ambassadors and high threat personnel in locations around the world like Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, any place that has a U.S. consulate or embassy. We're the security teams for those particular individuals, making sure they're safe. I ended up right after my training in late 2004, early 2005, ended up in Iraq, assigned to the U.S. ambassador. So I worked at the U.S. embassy overseas. Um, was in Iraq pretty much from 2005 until roughly 2000, mid 2008, and then transitioned over to Afghanistan, where I spent almost 10 years in Afghanistan overseeing the U.S. ambassador there. Um, it was a great opportunity to see that side of the job. Now, during that time, I did come back and home. Like I said, I was married and had kids. So I, go overseas for about 3 months, come back home, it was an amazing opportunity, an amazing experience, learned so much. Um, but it was pretty much done. I'd spent almost a little over 10 years between Afghanistan and a little bit more time. And then just after 2014, I was going to give it up. I was time to come home. I was going to come back to the fire department, finish out my career, uh, be a dad, in a sense.
Yeah.
Uh, but sometimes things happen. And in September of 2014, I was in Israel doing a PT swim. I would do a 200-meter swim once a week and was in the ocean doing my swim. And water was kind of choppy. So I figured to cut my swim short and come back and start pretty much kind of walking out of the water. I was probably only in about 4.5 feet of water. Um, that's the last thing I remember. I was 30 feet from shore. I woke up 2 days later. I was intubated in an Israeli hospital. Um, in a sense, uh, had no idea what was going on. I couldn't move from the neck down. In short, come to find out, I had gotten hit by an undertow, got caught by an undertow that took me under. And as it took me under, another wave came crashing down on top of me. Slammed the back of my head on the ocean floor, lights out, and had broke my neck. I had had a C4, C5 um, spinal cord contusion that made me a quadriplegic. And when I woke up, doctors came in, kind of told me a little bit what was kind of going on, and in a sense told me that I would probably never walk again. And that was it. That's pretty much what I was told. I was in the hospital for about another 4 weeks before I was flown back to the United States. Luckily, I live here in Atlanta, and one of the top spinal rehab facilities is actually here in Atlanta called the Shepherd Center. Um, and I was put there, and I was there for 6 months going through rehab. But a cool thing happened while I was there. Being told that I was never going to walk again, I'm in a wheelchair. I remember laying in bed one Sunday night, and my right hand was on my chest, and I just started looking at my thumb, and it moved. And I was like, okay, if being a paramedic, I know that if I've got movement in any part, of my body, you know, that's telling me that there's a connection. And so for there, that told me that there was a chance. And so I was psyched. I was excited. I called my nurses in, showed them what was kind of going on. My physical therapist came in the next morning and said, hey, I heard you had some excitement. I said, yeah. And so we started going to work. And there's something that when you go through something like that, there's so many thoughts. And I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with your listeners. I didn't want to be here anymore. Everything that I had worked hard for, everything that I had worked to become, was gone. My career was gone. My chances of being a paramedic were gone. I thought things that I used to do with my kids, play football and things of that sort, I wouldn't be able to do anymore, braid my daughter's hair, all that stuff were the things that, when I'm laying in a hospital bed, these are the things that are going through my head, going through my mind. And what I didn't realize was that that was just a start. You know, Sometimes you kind of, you know, break down to rebuild. And that, in a sense, what happened to me. And to be honest with you, that accident was probably the best thing that could happen to me because there was so much that I learned about myself from that accident, as opposed to just thinking that I would never going to walk again and things of that sort. So I set my mindset changed. You know, I got introduced to personal development. Now, don't get me wrong, I've heard of personal development. I've heard of people like Tony Robbins and things of that sort, but I never took the time to read or, you know, listen to a recording or, watch YouTube or anything to that extent. I was making six figures a year, had a great career. I was good in all sense and purposes on paper. But sometimes there's a lot of growth that we need to do from within, and that was the start of what I needed to do.
Wow, that story is amazing. I recall you telling me about it, but I picked up on some new things you just were talking about. And the Courage, Confidence, Connections being the name of our podcast, you you are totally you had courage just in your regular business and job. It took courage to do what you did. Paramedics, that's not an easy job, and doing everything you've done. And so tell me, you obviously had confidence in what you did. Uh, let's tell our audience, how did your confidence get shaken with the accident? I mean, can you talk about that a little bit if it
Oh
took a
yes.
level of courage? Okay.
Oh yeah. There's no way to say that it didn't because I had actually in a sense given up, to be honest with you. I wanted to die, to be honest with you. I had contemplated, how to take myself out. Um, so everything that when I say that I had to rebuild from the bottom up, mindset wise, belief in myself, the whole concept from stem to stern had to be restructured, and
Mhm.
that was because of personal development. I like my doctor told me at the time when I was injured, I was in great shape. I was about 236 pounds. I was about 6.5 to 7% body fat. So I was in great shape. It was required for the job and stuff that I did. Equipment that I had carrying, we're getting in and out of helicopters. We're, very active day to day stuff that we're doing overseas. So you had to be in the best shape. And all of a sudden, I had no access to my arms, my hands, my feet. Someone had to help feed me. Everything that I had known and worked hard for was, in a sense, gone. So me, and the only thing I really had was me laying in bed, outside of, going to physical therapy or going to my physical therapy sessions. I was in bed. So I'm looking at four walls, trying to figure out my life. So yeah, my confidence had been shattered. So being able to rebuild that took surrounding myself with a great onset of people. There are some people who I had to remove from my circle because, our thinking was going in two totally different directions. Um, but once I started surrounding myself with the right mindset of people that started just like you're building a building, you
Mhm.
put it brick by brick. That's how your mindset has to be reestablished. And for that, that was some of the things that needed to take place. Getting the opportunities to have those discussions, you know, allowing myself to express what I was feeling, what I was thinking, why I was feeling and thinking those things. Um, and then when that came into play, it was more of the development of being able to say, okay, this is where I was 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 2 years ago. And when I would have those, don't get me wrong, when I would still have those shortcomings of thoughts, I'd have to say, well, wait a second. A year ago you were here. 2 years ago you couldn't do this. This is what you're doing. Um, like I said, I was a firefighter paramedic for a number of years, and lost a friend on 9/11. But here in Georgia, we have a place called Stone Mountain, and every year on 9/11, firefighters from around the state and some from neighboring states will travel here. You got a bunch of firefighters on the morning of 9/11. We'll climb Stone Mountain. We're in our full turnout gear, maybe carrying a 50-foot section of hose or Scott packs, so everything that we carry into a fire, and we climb to the top of Stone Mountain, which is roughly a mile. Okay. And so on September 11th, I remember I was in physical therapy at the Shepherd Center. It was September 11th, 2000, 2018. And I
Mhm.
set a goal that on 1 year from that day, I was going to climb Stone Mountain. And so I went to work with my physical therapist. And when I wasn't in physical therapy, I was in the gym doing stuff. And it's on the news. I'll send you a link to it so that way you have the news has a news link. But I
Excellent.
had about 30 or 40 friends show up at the local news show up, somebody's from the fire department, and we climbed Stone Mountain. It took me 2 hours and 10 minutes, but I climbed Stone Mountain. And so, and that just increased my confidence in reference to setting goals, that hey, I can still set goals. There's some work involved in it. I couldn't do it and I couldn't climb it like I could, before, but I could still set goals and I could still move forward in accomplishing those goals and continue to move forward. So, and it's still, still this day being able to, what it was showing up for my daughter who is in cheer and being in her cheer competitions, or, watching her and my son run track and stuff like that, or going to my son's graduation when he graduated from high school and the University of Georgia just last year.
Nice.
Being present for those areas are all because I made the decision to show up.
Well, you bring a new level and new meaning of taking baby steps. You really do, because you were starting from scratch. And
Exactly.
yeah, you were starting from scratch. I've heard a lot of other stories. I'm a big movie watcher, and I seem to hit on those movies of, someone who's either had a tragic accident or they had a disability and they overcame it. And of course, I do coaching and training. So mindset is everything. It really is. The fact that you saw your thumb move, you couldn't feel it, but you saw it move. I got chills when you said that. I'm like, that's just phenomenal. But you embraced that baby step. It was like, it wasn't much, but it was enough for you to grab hold to. No, now during this rebuilding process, did you have some super high moment, more super high moments, and super low moments? I mean, did you ever, you know,
I
call it a
look,
roller coaster?
yeah, I looked at every situation more so as an opportunity. And what I mean by that, there was a moment when I fell. When I was going through one of my physical therapy sessions, and we're getting me up, and I'm in a safe area. I've got mats and stuff down, but I fell and I started laughing. And then when the therapist was like, hey, are you okay? This, that, and the other, and I'm cracking up laughing. And like, well, what is so funny? We're checking to make sure that you're hurt. And I said, well, I fell. And they said, yeah, we saw that. We want to make sure you're okay. I'm like, no, you don't get it. Now I'm not afraid to fall because I fell and know what that feels like. I know what to expect. I have a better idea how I want to land in the event something happens. I still go through safety precautions and making sure that I don't fall, but that fear or that question about, what if I fall? What if that happens? Well, I've already fallen. So what's the difference of that in life when you're going through something? You're going to fail. You're going to fall. There's going to be situations that happen, whether, this is no different. This is just a different situation, another opportunity to kind of go through something, figure out how to deal with it, and get back up. And that's exactly how I kind of looked at it.
Yeah, I've been through a lot of things that trauma, and I won't go in. This isn't my story, but I can relate, and I do help people going through things a lot of times because we all have things that take us down or attempt to. And I started writing my blogs. I've got quite a few of them now, but when I started writing my blogs, I started recalling stories of childhood and adulthood that made me laugh. And so, okay, I grew in learning to laugh at that incident where, I mean, like I've had a couple falls, so I know what it feels like, uh and I guess I bounce pretty good and have a really hard head. So, so I really work on embracing learning, really learning from those experiences. And it sounds like you have gotten another level of education through that traumatic situation in your life. And so tell me what you really appreciate about your life right now as you've come through this.
My kids being able to see this, because on the back side of it, hopefully, if anything, it allows my kids to be able to look at life and say, listen, if dad went through this
Yeah.
and got back up on his feet, then I can do it too, as opposed to thinking that life is over, or just whatever they're going through is going to be the worst thing ever, because we see that day to day right now where so many people give up. you
Mhm.
know so many people get to a point in life where, whether it's family related or something is going on with their jobs or whatever the case may be, as opposed to looking at the situation and saying, okay, let me better myself. Or, hey, maybe this is an opportunity, instead of me working for someone else, maybe this is an opportunity for me to start my own thing, be my own boss, or whatever the case may be. But they have that fear, so they think that life is all over with, and so they give up. For me, it was more so allowing, and friends, and I've had so many people say, man, you're an encouragement, you're an inspiration, and this, that, and the other. And to be honest with you, that used to bother me early on, because I was like, I don't want to be an inspiration. I don't want to be an encouragement. I want my legs back. I want my life back. I want to go back and doing what I was supposed to do. Maybe that wasn't my intention. And I think I remember I had so much stress about that going on early on. And I remember being in bed and thinking that, I had this thought that, you know, maybe I'm going through this because I'm supposed to help someone else. And the moment that I had that thought, it seemed like whatever stress was there left.
Yeah, I agree. When I started, I was sitting in a chair, I was doing some writing, and I was at that point, critical point of making decisions in my life I'd gone through some very rough times, and all of a sudden, courage, confidence, connections just dropped in me. And I'm like, now what is that? Well, I just said, okay, I'm gonna take it and run with it. I don't know where it's gonna go. So even through the tough times, and we will always have something come up. I mean, nobody is gonna live a life free of, problems or
Exactly.
challenges. So on that note of challenges, how have you, what is the word? I'm trying to think. It just went sailing. Oh, redefined yourself, for lack of a better word, rebuilt. So tell our audience a little bit, because I think the next part of your story is all about connections that have brought you to where you are.
Yeah. So I mentioned to you about personal development, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in which is kind of weird, 3 months before I got injured, um, I was invited to look at a network marketing company. Okay. Didn't really quite understand the industries. You kind of hear these, horror stories and stuff like that about different companies and that sort. But I trusted the individual. I trusted a buddy of mine who had talked to me about it. And so I said, okay, sure. And then I got hurt. Okay. So the company, the business, all that wasn't even in my thought process.
Mm-hmm.
But while I was in the hospital, while I was in physical therapy, I would come back to my room, and there was always these post-it notes on my bed with a name and a phone number. I'm like, who are these? Who are these? And it was different people. There was like three or four different people that would call each time. And I'm like, who are these people? So one day I called, and it was one of the directors from the company. And I had never, outside of my buddy whose sister had introduced me, I had not met anyone. I hadn't been anything. I hadn't been to any events or anything to that extent. But they heard about my accident. And so they're like, listen, hey, we understand you're kind of going through some things. Um, Send us, when you get a chance, put your bills together and send them to us. And I'm like, for what? And like, we're going to take care of you and take care of some situation, take whatever you need, we're going to take care of you. And I'm like, I don't know you. I'm like, who are you guys? This, that, and the other. So over the course of several weeks, I'm like, I'm looking up the company and I'm talking to some folks and this, that, and the other, and I'm getting to know them. Some of them are prior military, they're doctors, they're, different, backgrounds of folks, this, that, and the other. Well, fast forward, about a few months later, I go to an event, the first event, because I'm like, who are these folks? And that's where I was truly introduced to the personal development, getting a chance to understand the different aspects of what personal development really was. And so for me in the beginning, it wasn't the business. It wasn't, making money or anything to that extent. It was the community of people that I was surrounding myself around, that I was being introduced to. Those connections put me in the rooms with Tony Robbins, that I had a 30-minute conversation with him. People like Robert Kiyosaki, that I got a chance to sit in a room with, Grant Cardone, um, Gary Vaynerchuk. These are people who you know, I'm sitting sitting in a room right across from a table, and we're having a conversation, and they want to hear my story. I had the opportunity. I got invited to share my story, and I wrote a book that came out in December of 2019. It's called Breakthrough, featuring Willie Myers. Well, Les Brown is a co-author.
Nice.
So I got a chance to, move, move in that direction. So over the course of 10 years, yeah, I've been building this, we started off in the lifestyle component, uh, business, which is travel, which I enjoy traveling. Most of the time when I travel is always on the government's dime, and they're kind of always sending me someplace violent. So this time here, I've got a choice to travel where I want to go. Um, but I wasn't building it more so in the aspect of the money side of it. For me, it was, hey, I get a chance to do some cool things. I get to share some experiences, help some people travel and things of that sort. Well, doing some things that I've been doing over the past 10 years um, put me in the rooms of some of the higher ups in the industry. Um, One thing happened, we had, COVID affected our entire world. Well, took a big hit.
Yeah.
Um, so, we pretty much kind of lost a lot of the aspects that we were able to do. But we had another company that was looking directly at us, because they were looking to add travel to their already existing, platform that they've been doing. So a good majority of us were invited over to share what we had been doing. I was being looked at as a leader in my community that I had been building, despite the fact that I was in a wheelchair at the time, despite the fact that I wasn't able to do what everybody else was doing.
Mm.
I found a way of still being able to develop and build a business from a wheelchair because of my mindset. Because it wasn't what I was able to do physically. It was more so what I was able to do and people see what I could do and share the concept of what it was. Um, so probably middle part of last year, we were invited to do a merger and bring the whole dynamics of the company and change the format of it because of travel at the time. I think it was like a $9.25 trillion a year industry. And
Mhm.
we had what was called travel rebound because of what COVID was going on. So we did a redevelopment. And 6 weeks ago, we relaunched our company in the existing aspect of what we're doing. Um, with the merger, we actually went publicly traded. So we're the first lifestyle component company that's gone publicly traded. And so that's been a hindsight. We just got back from Dallas. We had a big event there. We're getting ready to go to Dubai. And so the fact that I'm able to still enjoy life, share it with my kids, spend time with my kids, see my grandkids grow up, see everyone thrive, as opposed to a time when I almost gave up because of a situation.
Yeah, and really everybody has a different level of give up that, they may or may not. I mean, some people they've got everything and they give up when, I don't know, something minor happens or they want to. But
Right.
there's always a deeper issue inside us that we may not know, may not see. And I think I mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza to you one
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
because he had a similar thing and healed himself, although he got hit by a vehicle. So, in any case, it's inspiring to hear people's stories of, okay, I was on this path and so I got hit, or this track, and I got hit by a train and
Yeah.
and and so I had to change tracks. Some people go through multiple changes to find that right path, but I think you'd agree that laying still and having to be by yourself and your own mind can be tormenting unless you decide, okay, there's something's got to change. It's clear that, and so your body said one thumb. Your body said, "We're not giving up," and your body spoke to you. Just a little bit, and you weren't sleeping on the job. You saw it, and so
Yeah.
you grabbed hold of that.
There's stages, and there's something I forgot, and not really didn't forget to mention, but I didn't mention initially. Um, I had, because I was married at the time. Um, this affects people differently, you know. My wife at the time felt that this wasn't something that she could deal with. And so, we parted ways. She filed for divorce. But when she told me that she had done that, it didn't, I wasn't depressed. It wasn't something that bothered me. It encouraged me. And what I meant by that is because that next day I had physical therapy. And that's when I went into the gym and I told my physical therapist, hey, before we get started, my gym had a track on the second floor. And the way that you get to it was there's some stairs. You can either take the elevator or you can take the stairs. And I went to the back of the gym and I said, hey, can we go back? And I said, there's a flight of steps. I want to see if I can just climb a couple of steps. And he goes, you're not rated for that yet. And I said, I know, but just, let me just see what I can do. And then we'll go do whatever it is that you need to do. I just want to see something. So we wheeled my wheelchair there to the bottom of the flight of steps. He helped me stand. And my intentions was just to, hold on to the railing and just see if I could move, a couple steps up. And I ended up climbing 8 steps. So that whole flight of stairs. And he looked at me and he was like, where'd this come from? And I said, I said, help me get down. So we got down. I said, I just want to see that. And I'm psyched. And, he goes and he's telling the other director and stuff like that about it. But when I got home, I started looking for a house with stairs because I know it's going to be moving out soon. My wife just said that she filed for divorce.
Mm.
And so when I moved out a few months later, I got a house with stairs. Like my house right now, if you count my basement garage, because my garage is in, I've got one flight, two flights. I'm in a three-story house, if you count that. So two flights of stairs, and I got stairs that go up to my front door. So I got a house with stairs just so I could climb stairs on a day-to-day basis. That was
Well,
it.
and there's a new level of gratitude. That's amazing. That's amazing, Willie. Well, we're going to wrap it up, but I'd like any final thoughts from you that you might have. Your story is powerful, and what I want to do is have people encouraged by your story, just to keep taking, if it's a baby step, just do something. So you've got I mean, you had it going on in life when this happened. So you just needed to get in a different direction. And um, so now you get to enjoy life at a different level in a different way. So I'm very, very inspired. And this definitely should be a movie. I'll tell you that. I'm glad you've got a book. And so we'll have all that information. But before we wrap it up, is there any final thoughts that you might have for our audience?
Yeah, it's simply this. It's, don't give up. Okay. Two powerful words, probably two of the most powerful words that are out there is I can't. And the moment that you say that you can't do something, you're done. Okay. It's going to be, it might take a little work to get where you need to get. You might have to stumble and fall a couple times to get back up, to continue to move forward. But the moment that you say that you can't do something, you erased any opportunity, you erased any chances to possibly see what the future holds. So as long as it takes, no matter how painful or how stressful or whatever it may be that you're going through to get past it, it's temporary.
Yeah.
Just don't quit. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many people that have been through anything that's, whether it's minor to me or you or major, they want to quit. And that is, we'll leave it there. Don't quit. And if it's a baby step, don't be ashamed. Take that baby step. I'll always remember that thumb now. You know, you saw your thumb move. That's inspiration right there. So I am so thankful that you've been able to join me on this podcast because you exemplify courage, confidence, and connections. And what can I say? There's your life speaks loudly for that. So I so appreciate that. We'll have all of Willie's contact information available at the end of the video, and reach out to him, get a copy of his book, read his story, and who knows, he might be back on our podcast. So I'm sure we have a lot we could talk about even more. But thank you for joining Courage, Confidence, Connections. This is Janice Debo, and I'm signing off. We'll see you soon.
Mhm.